who's familiar with the song? Everybody knows it? Shout it out. Who is it? Rick James. That's right. Renowned pothead and coke addict. God rest his soul. Well, I was actually prepared to start a little bit late. Okay, there we go. Prepared to start a little bit late, and actually kind of glad that I am, because it took me all of 20 minutes to get the popcorn out of my teeth. So the next time we do a movie theater theme, I'm also going to distribute floss and toothpicks so that nobody else has to deal with what I had to deal with. The title of my speech is Much Ado About Nothing, so that kind of tells you what I think about the marijuana law. I know a lot of people are probably up in arms about it. When the law first came out, Chicken Little started running. Everyone started to think, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? So I'm here to tell you a little bit about the law, dispel a couple of myths. I don't have a whole lot of time, even though we're starting late. I still have to hustle to get this in because there's a lot of information to go over, and I'm not even addressing the entire law. But the first thing you need to know is this is a very big law. And I don't mean from its impact on Ohioans, but just by the sheer size and magnitude of the law. As you can see by the slide, 13 sections of the revised code were amended. There are 37 new sections to the revised code, and what this law is doing is it's putting together a medical marijuana program, okay? An entire program on marijuana. So, as I said, I think people have some misconceptions. And even yesterday, I was talking with a doctor who I thought would know something about the medical marijuana law, and even he didn't understand it. So, this is a movie theme. So far, you haven't seen a movie. And I'd be remiss if I didn't show you a movie. But this is what I think people think about the marijuana law.
Hey, you want to get high, man?
That's how they do. They got wooden balls, man.
I got a joint here, man. I've been saving for a special occasion.
Play on fire, though.
Hey, I hope the drums don't mess up your upholstery, man.
Nah, I'm in a band too, man.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I'm a lead singer, man.
Ah, that's hip.
Yeah, we play everything from like Santana to El Chicano, man. You know, like everything. Hey, I'm just a love machine, and I don't work for nobody but you. I'm just a love machine, and I don't work for nobody but you. So when my temperature rise, and then I go for her thighs, and then I say guacamole in my juice, guacamole in my juice. Hijo de la chingada. Is that a joint, man? God damn, looks like a quarter pounder, man.
So anyway, show of hands. Who smoked a blunt that big? Oh, you guys are good. Nobody's going to admit to it, huh? Okay, all right. You didn't inhale it, you just had it in your mouth, right? All right. So the first myth that we need to dispel is smoking is prohibited. This is not a smoking law, people. A lot of people, I think, they've misunderstood this because they still have the constitutional amendment from last year in mind. Under the constitutional amendment, smoking was allowed. You could have, I think, up to 3 plants you could grow in your house. This is not that law. This came about through legislation. It's a compromise. You getting my good side? Okay. So you can't smoke it. And when you look at the film clip with Cheech and Chong, you can't drive a car under the influence of marijuana either, or a boat, or a tricycle, or whatever the means of transportation is, okay? This is not the law that you think it is. So when we were preparing for this speech, we sent out a survey to people to see exactly what their concerns were. And what we found was overwhelmingly, see if it'll pop up. employers seem to be concerned with what this is going to do to their safety laws, or safety rules, I'm sorry. To their safety rules, whether or not they're going to have to accommodate people on marijuana. So I wanted to try to tailor this speech to some of the issues and concerns that you might have in the workplace. And I'm not sure if you can really read this, but I know a lot of this information should be on the handouts too. Is there something, at this point, stop me, is there something that gives you overwhelming concern about marijuana as it pertains to the workplace? And we'll try to address it sometime in the next 15 minutes. Anybody? Nobody's concerned? Everybody high? Okay. All right. First thing you need to know, when does the law become effective? When does it become effective? Anybody know? It is effective. It became effective September the 8th, 90 days after the governor signed the bill enacting it. But the real question is, when does it really become effective? You don't just write a law and sit down and all of a sudden all of its working parts are there in front of you and you get to run out to the medical marijuana dispensary, get your marijuana edible, and treat yourself. That's not how it works. This is, as I said, it's a very big law. What they're doing is they're developing a medical marijuana control program, okay? So the law and all its moving parts take time to develop. Under the language of the statute, the Department of Commerce and the Board of Pharmacy, which are the two primary agencies charged with putting together this medical marijuana law, have got 2 years to take all necessary steps to make sure that the law is in place. So the language says all necessary steps. That's more aspirational than it is mandatory. So if you're concerned about when this law is really going to be effective, probably 2 years and some change from now. But it's not effective now. There's too much that needs to go on. I like to use analogies, and I was kind of thinking of the universe of this law. And it's really, in retrospect, I shouldn't have used a universe theme. This is more like a solar system. And the medical marijuana control program is the Earth, okay? The other components are the suns and the moons, are your agencies and other interested parties that are responsible for putting this law together, okay? So just like the suns and the moon nourish the Earth, keep its rotation in balance, that's what these agencies are doing. So you've got 3 of them primarily, all right? You've got the Board of Pharmacy, which is responsible for registering patients and caregivers, because you're going to have caregivers that are going to be dispensing this to people who are ill. And they're also responsible for giving licenses to the dispensaries, the ones that actually, where you go and buy it. And then you also have the Department of Commerce, because obviously now there's a stream of money. And people have to build the cultivating places, the processing places, the laboratories where they test it, because there's a lot that goes into this law. Then you have the State Medical Board, because it's a medical marijuana law. The only way anyone gets medical marijuana in the state of Ohio is through a doctor. And it's not, any old doctor. It can't be your cousin George who practices dermatology, okay? It's got to be a doctor who has a certification from the State Medical Board to prescribe it. And then you've got this panel, this medical marijuana committee. Not really sure what they do, but I can tell you they've been selected. They were supposed to be selected within the first 30 days, and they are. And I looked at the list, and I don't recognize a single name. I don't know who they are. But these are people from all different backgrounds, nurses, doctors, candlestick makers, whatever. And they are all responsible for giving advice to these boards. So these are all the people that are involved in putting this law together. And these boards have 2 years, or they have 1 year to get their rules and regulations together, okay? So again, when we're talking about when does this become effective, 2 years for the whole program, it's going to take them a year to put together their rules. Again, it is a medical marijuana law. This is not a recreational use law. And what that means is you can't use it for personal use, okay? So you can't ask a doctor to give it to you so that you can go around and, I don't know, eat a little marijuana candy bar or something. There are restrictions on zoning. So municipalities have the ability to say we don't want marijuana within our geography. They can do that. You can't have a medical marijuana dispensary, cultivator, processor, lab within 500 feet of a church, a school, a playground. There are a number of restrictions on this law. It is very restrictive. And as I said, it pertains only to certain kinds of conditions. It's for medical use. So this is a fairly encompassing list, and it all comes from the statute. This is not an exhaustive list because the state medical board can still develop other conditions. The catch-all at the bottom there in the blue is basically anything else. And you can't just make up a condition. I mean, the doctor who is prescribing the medical marijuana has to, one, find that you have a serious medical condition, and then two, the patient would have to petition the Board of Pharmacy in order to get a registration for a condition that's not on here. But as you look at the list, I mean, these are serious health conditions: AIDS, ALS, PTSD. I mean, these are not your run-of-the-mill conditions. They're serious conditions. And as I said, the doctor that's prescribing it can't be your Uncle Joe. So where you might think, or maybe you have a friend or a doctor and you say, hey, you know what, I ran out of my blood pressure medicine, can you write me a script? Your doctor friend says, sure, I'll write you a script. Or you have a dermatologist in your family and you say, hey, I need some acne medicine, can you write me a script? Sure. You can't just ask your friend who's a doctor to write your script for medical marijuana. It's not that easy. Now, these are the various forms. As I said, you can't smoke it, but you can get it in all these forms: patches, tinctures, you put a little drop on your tongue. You can vaporize it. Does anybody know why you can vaporize it but you can't smoke it? Everyone have a good guess? Huh? No? Anybody know why you probably can't smoke it? It's a medical marijuana law. What does smoking do to your health? Yeah, it's a carcinogen. There's research that says that smoking marijuana can also possibly cause cancer. If it's a medical marijuana law, why would the medical board want to endorse something that could be harmful to your health? Vaporizing is a different process. You heat it up to 392 degrees, which is right before combustion. It's right before you can actually get to the smoking point. That's why they allow that. Patches is a fairly new method of delivery. Goes straight into the bloodstream. So I guess the body's not metabolizing it the same way it would if you eat it. And one thing to know about marijuana, and trust me, I'm not really a marijuana expert, but the one thing to know about marijuana is that there are two primary properties to it: THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, and CBD, which is cannabinoid. The THC is what gets you high. And in this very restrictive law, the legislature has already regulated how much THC can go in plant material, or be extracted from the plant material, and also from these other methods. So, again, it is a very restrictive law. I don't know how you would use it in plant material unless you put it in tea or make some brownies. But again, these are the methods that you can use it. So the first question that people had, do you have to accommodate for it? Short answer, no. You don't accommodate for medical marijuana. I mean, first thing to know is under federal law, under the ADA, well, scratch that. Under federal law, it's a Schedule 1. In Ohio, it's a Schedule 2. Federal law is going to trump, okay? It's going to take precedence, and Ohio recognizes that. So you're not going to be able to accommodate it, but the Ohio law says it explicitly in the law. There's nothing that forces an employer to accommodate somebody on medical marijuana. You don't have to accommodate it in a public place, although there's nothing that restricts a public place from accommodating it either. So accommodation, no. Can you prohibit use of it? I changed this slide. Originally, the slide said no, because I was thinking more like policing marijuana. You don't have the ability as employers to say, well, you can't use that. Well, I guess you can through your policies, and that's why I changed it to yes, in a way. Through your policies, sure. You have all the same methods you had before. You want to discharge somebody because they're on marijuana, fine. You want to discipline them because they're on marijuana, fine. You can do all that. Refuse to hire them, fire them, whatever you want to do, okay? The cases that have dealt with this in other jurisdictions have always found that an employer has the right to fire somebody for the use of marijuana. And bear in mind, different states have different laws. These are not, one-to-one equations. However, in this particular law, this is all codified. So this comes out of the language of the law. You don't really have to rely on the case law for these propositions. The biggest question that people have is, should you change your policies? And I know I've got probably 3 minutes left. My question back to employers is, well, two things. One, I already told you that this law probably is not going into effect, not effectively, for another couple years. So why would you rush to change your policies at this point? We don't even know what the regulations are yet. Nobody has any clue because they haven't been developed. But the other thing is, what are you trying to accomplish? If it's a safety rule, then obviously you don't want somebody at work that's high, right? Safety is one thing. But if the purpose of your rule is safety, and this person is using it at home while they're convalescing, do you want to tell that person that they cannot medicate if their doctor has found that this is the best treatment course? I don't know. I mean, you can have a zero tolerance policy. There's some employers in Ohio that have a smoking ban, period. They don't care whether you do it at work or at home. It doesn't matter. You cannot smoke. And you can take that policy, but understand what you're trying to accomplish. There are some far more dangerous drugs that are narcotic and addictive that employers freely allow their employees to medicate with. So keep that in mind. And I would say if you have fears about marijuana, and I'm not an advocate for marijuana at all, I don't use it, but research it a little bit and see what it is you want to try to accomplish. Couple points in a couple areas of law. It does not affect workers' compensation negatively. Under 4123.54 of the law, if an employee is deemed to be intoxicated at the time of an injury and the intoxication is the reason for the injury, then it's not a compensable claim. That remains the same. All they did was amend the language to add medical marijuana in, because if you had a prescription, if you were high or intoxicated from a prescription drug, you were exempted from that provision. Now, because medical marijuana is a prescribed form of medication, they had to write that in. Under unemployment law, it's just cause for termination. Okay, so you can still terminate. This, I'm not going to go over because I'm pressed for time. As I said, I had to hustle through this presentation. So keep this, look at this just as a resource. The bottom line refers to reciprocity. I know some people had a question about whether or not, hey, somebody's in Michigan and they get some medical marijuana in Michigan, you know, does it, you know, can they use it here? I got 0 time left, so I'm gonna motor real quick. I have like 2 slides. The answer is kind of yes and no. The statute provides for reciprocity, but what it provides for is that the Board of Pharmacy and the Department of Commerce do basically everything in good faith to find ways to be reciprocal with other states. But the other states have to have the same eligibility requirements, or substantively the same as Ohio. So Ohio's not going to reciprocate with another state unless you have the same kind of concepts. Is this a law that has certain qualifying conditions? Are the licensing requirements the same? You know, does a doctor have to go through the same rigors to prescribe medical marijuana in Michigan as he does in Ohio? Those are the kinds of things that the agencies are going to look at. They're not going to just nilly-willy say, hey, you're on the border right next to us, we like you, so let's reciprocate. It doesn't work that way. This is basically the last slide, and I know I'm out of time, but just to tell you how quickly the marijuana issue is progressing, we put this map together to show you all the states that have medical marijuana, and then the little red dots are the ones that had medical marijuana on the ballot. This has already changed, okay? We put this together in the summer. This map is outdated. Just so that you're aware, I think it's, what is that? Missouri, which is, well, does anybody know the map? I think it's that one. Well, Arkansas and Missouri are right. Which one's on top? Missouri. Out. They don't have a medical marijuana law. It was on the ballot, but it went away. Oftentimes, you know, you don't get enough signatures. That's probably what happened. As far as recreational marijuana is concerned, everybody thinks that this is a gateway. In a sense, you're right, because what the marijuana community wants is they want to get it in by way of medical marijuana laws, and then once people get comfortable, then that's how you can get recreational marijuana in. There are 5 states right now that have got recreational marijuana on their ballots for November: Arizona, California, Maine, Massachusetts, and Nevada. And to let you know where the trends are going, the majority of people polled in all these states, I mean more than 50%, believe that recreational marijuana should be legal. So that's what the future is. Now, is this going to happen in Ohio anytime soon? Who knows? But we're at the starting point because the medical marijuana law is in. It is, as we stand right now, it is a very restrictive law, and that's why I titled this Much to Do About Nothing. 2 or 3 years from now, if I present on this, it might be a different presentation.